Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Plocast. Today, we're going to be talking about Season 1 of Andor. It's going to be sort of our review, breakdown, kind of final video on Season 1. Not forever, but for now. We're going to be talking about what we liked, what we thought made the show work, if anything didn't, the different aspects of it that we enjoyed, and what we thought, made it succeed. Because it, in our eyes anyway, and a lot of the fans, a lot of the community, has been a pretty successful show. So, we're going to be talking about that today. Before we get into that, though, make sure to check out the playlist down below to watch all of our reactions to every single episode of Andor. You can go ahead and look down there. We watched every episode and we reacted to them, so you can check that out if you want. There's also some trailer reactions a while back on the channel if you want to look for those, as well as a bunch of other Star Wars stuff. But first, question. Would any of you guys be interested in seeing a tier list of Andor, of all the episodes in Season 1? Normally we would just make it and post it, but spoiler alert, most of the episodes would probably end up in S through B, so like, you know what I mean? So, but I still think it'd be interesting. So if you'd be interested in seeing that, let us know in the comments so that we know that there's at least somebody who would watch that. So
it's like a ranking, but everyone is S rank, so
well, I wouldn't put all of them in it. So.
But yeah, I don't know.
Probably be some B's and A's in there. So. But yeah, without further ado, we're gonna jump into it. There's gonna be some time cards down in the slider bar there, in the scrub bar, where you can skip the different chapters, different sections. They'll be labeled as to what we're talking about, so you can jump around if you'd like, or you can just watch the whole thing through. So I think first off, we should start with what we liked about the show. And we could go one thing at a time, so maybe don't say like 9 things that you like. We'll go back and forth. The first thing that I liked about it was the writing. I thought the writing was really well done in this show. It made the characters feel real. It made them feel like they had, they were deep. They had, they had backstories, they had connections, they had relationships. I loved the writing of the story and how it all came together. And we'll talk about the characters more later, but the way that all of these side characters and all of these different plot lines come together, especially in the finale where everybody's kind of in the same place on Ferrix there. I really liked the writing in this. It's some of the best that we've gotten from Star Wars, I think, period, like in general, in terms of writing wise. And the dialogue was great. There was nothing that felt like, oh, they really didn't need to include that line. It didn't feel like we were being exposited at a bunch, just like exposition dump and just crap coming out of characters' mouth because they have to. I didn't really feel like that was there a lot. All the dialogue made sense with what we know from the characters and how they would speak. So hearing a conversation between two characters felt very real, and it felt like it was an actual conversation happening. And not that Star Wars doesn't have things that are well written. I mean, look at the original trilogy. There's a lot of good writing in there. There's also some clunky bits in there. Clone Wars, I think, in the later seasons especially, has some really solid writing. Rebels has some pretty decent writing too. But, recently there's been some projects where you're just like, eh. And even in the past, there's older projects where you're like, yeah, whatever. But this, I think, is one of the best written things in Star Wars, period.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of piggyback on that. Because my first enjoyment was it felt very TV show. In a
Yes.
good way, not a bad way.
So, like the structure, you would say, like how it's
structure. Yeah, look at you articulating my thoughts.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Because it reminds me a lot. Some of my favorite shows are, or one of my favorite shows is Game of Thrones. And one of the reasons is because there's probably 10 different major storylines between different family members, then different families and different regions and different almost continents between the East and the West. And they all work together and they all interweave. And there's never a moment where you're like, oh man, I gotta watch this again. Let me just get back to Jon Snow or whoever. And for this show, I feel like it's doing that as well. They're flip-flopping between Cassian's storyline, between Mon Mothma storyline, between Luthen and what's Karn? I was gonna call him Stiff because I almost forgot his name. But Karn, and they're all very enjoyable. They're all fleshed out. They're all getting little bits at a time. We're kind of bumping back and forth, and that's kind of what makes it feel more TV show like. Whereas movies usually are like, all right, we're going to focus on Anakin Skywalker and we're going to flesh him out, and all the supporting characters kind of lend in his story. And it's great and it works. But then TV shows have the benefit of having way more episodes and being able to go for multiple seasons to where you can say, all right, we're going to do Cassian. He's our main, but then let's flesh out Mon Mothma too, who really doesn't really have anything to do with Cassian. We'll tie him in later, but for now, like, it's like almost two completely separate storylines, and they're good.
Yeah,
they're really good. Like you said, the writing is really good for all the storylines. So I never felt like, maybe sometimes with Karn's mom. I don't think I liked Karn's mom.
I'll have a comment
I
on that
liked
later that might change your mind a little bit.
Okay. Well, I will say I liked how it developed Karn.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed seeing Karn and all that, and then knowing like how he ties into Cassian and stuff. So it has me excited because when you're starting all these storylines, in my mind, it seems to seem like, because they have another season 2 booked out already, it seems like they're gonna be like, all right, we have a plan for this. We have like a kind of narrative of the TV show. Yeah, a plan. Which is cool. It's cool to see things being put into motion, and I think that was one of my favorite things, especially since, I mean, Mando is really good. I'm not dissing it, but it doesn't really do this, and I think this does it very well. So that was my biggest pro.
There you go, pro, whatever. Wow. Shout out if you remember pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
But yeah, on that too, I think it feels more like a show than even the other Disney Star Wars shows. Like we said earlier, Mandalorian. I do not think Mandalorian is bad. I like Mandalorian. Who doesn't like Mandalorian? I think it's a great show. Season 1 is right up there with Andor season 1 in my book, but it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't do the same things. It's not as, like, I'm not stereotypical, but like it's not as like routine as other shows where there's multiple plot points, multiple characters getting development and all that. So it's just different. And then recently with like Book of Boba Fett and like, Obi-Wan, it was just kind of, it was whatever. It was whatever. But yeah, I agree. Like you were saying, there wasn't a time where we switched scenes where I was like, oh, I want to get back to that. No, I don't want to see this. Go away. So I think that is the sign of when something is done really well.
Yeah.
But my second, if you will, is kind of similar to yours, but a little different. It's the actual supporting characters themselves, and we'll talk more about them later. But like we'll go, into not all of them, but talk about different ones. But I like how they actually do support the show a significant amount. A lot of times, supporting characters end up being characters who are just kind of there and they don't really do anything. I'd argue maybe Fennec was kind of like that in Book of Boba Fett. I mean, she did do things, like she directed people.
She was the only one who did do things, right?
Yeah, at one point she was the only one doing anything. But like there were times, times where like they're just kind of there, and it's a supporting character, but it doesn't actually really support much of the show. Because if you take all the supporting characters out of the show, it's nothing. It's like if it's just about Cassian, I'm sure they could have made something just about Cassian on his own and his inner thoughts and his inner dialogue with himself or whatever. And I'm sure it would have been good. But the way this show is made, if you had all the supporting characters out and it was just Cassian, I don't think we would be talking about how good the show is. I think it would be totally different.
Yeah.
They're all separate enough from each other to where it's like a different plot line, but they also end up being connected or are already connected in some way. Like we have, for example, the Mon Mothma stuff and the Aldhani crew that ends up being brought together because Vel and Mothma are cousins and they're all part of the rebellion. This chunk of the rebellion that's with Luthen, so that brings him into it. So you see, like and they all have their own separate things too, because then you have Vel and Cinta and their relationship and the problems that they were having. And then you have Mothma and her not wanting to give her child away to a criminal, like whatever guy. So it all, the way that it all just flows together is just, and the way that they use the supporting character, that because Mandalorian, we said this like 1,000 times in the reactions, but if you watch season 1 of The Mandalorian, it's basically just The Mandalorian. It's what he does every
Mhm.
day, not every day, but on any given day. Um, what he's doing, how he's feeling with Grogu, like through subtle context clues and body language and all that. And then, sometimes we'll get Grief Karga having a meeting with like the client or whatever. But generally, it's just Mando. Like it's just Din Djarin and Grogu, and they're just they're going on adventures, they're doing stuff, and there's there's other characters, but they're not really supporting characters. They're more side characters that are related to the plot of the given episode, like the fake Han Solo guy, or Peli Motto, or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
So it's not the same. I'm not saying one is better or worse. I think it's about probably personal preference. But for this type of show, I think the supporting characters go a long way to help it out.
Yeah. I want to, before I give my next,
Yeah.
in positive, what are we calling these?
Uh, Thing that I liked, I guess. I don't
Next
know.
thing that I liked, I want to still talk about the characters, because I think, well, I know we both think Mando is excellent,
Yes.
but I think that's kind of like the exception to the rule. I think it's a lot harder to make a show just focus on one character, especially a show, and to make that excellent. I think it's much easier to develop all these other characters and then interweave them. And I want to just get specific, because in Andor, when we have in the finale, when we're back to Ferrex, and now we have Bix and we have Brasso, and all the community members, we know some of their storyline, and we know how much more impactful it is when their town is getting overrun by Imperials. Whereas in Boba, where they kind of went the Mando route, where they said, let's focus on one character, the Tatooine really didn't mean anything to us. It was mostly just we get to see Boba ride a Rancor, and that was cool, but it doesn't feel as much weighty as it does in Andor.
Yeah.
I think that I think kind of speaks to the most
Yeah.
important part about developing your characters.
Right.
Um,
Before you get into, I want to. That reminded me of something, and I don't want to forget about it. What were you saying? You were saying earlier about Boba Fett and the city being attacked and all that. It just shows you how to properly do it with Andor and how to incorrectly do it in Boba Fett. We
yeah,
talked about this in our
exactly.
Boba review. In Andor, we care about Ferrex. We like Brasso. We like Bix. We like Maarva.
Mm,
We like Pack,
mm.
and we like Pack's son. We
And the
like
droid, I forget his
all these
name.
people. B2 emo, I think.
Yeah.
We like Cassian when he's there. We know that this is his home. We know all of these people. We like them. This is where Clem was arrested and hanged. It's where Marva's funeral was. So when they're fighting for the town, you feel it. You're like, yes, I hope they save Ferrex. I want them to, we got to keep
Mhm.
it from the Empire. In Boba Fett, they're fighting over Tatooine, and nobody cares. We don't care about the townsfolk of Tatooine. The only interactions we have with the people in the town are them in the background, like doing background character
Yeah.
things, and that's
Yeah.
it. He doesn't like he interacts with like one or two of them. He interacts with that water guy, the watermonger guy. But like
Yep.
there's no connection with Boba and this town that he's supposedly trying to save from the Pikes and to malevolently rule over. So that it's I guess that also helps explain that point that we had when we were talking about Boba better, because Andor showed how to do it right, because we care about the town.
Exactly.
The fight for the town actually has more meaning, whereas in Boba Fett, I'm just like I don't care. Like, go ahead, take it. What do I care? Yeah, go ahead. I just wanted to. I didn't
Yeah.
want to forget that.
No, yeah. Because that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And that too, I think, speaks to how good. I know this is Andor review, but I think that speaks to how good Mando is, and how
Yep.
exceptional it is. Because Mando is kind of the same formula as Boba, where it's just that it's the star character and a few of his sidekicks,
Mhm.
and all the kind of other supporting characters are directly helping him, and we're just going about him. And I love Mando.
Yeah.
Season 1 and 2, I think, are really, really good. But it's hard to do that. And you need to bring in characters like Boba Fett in that show, and then like Bo-Katan, like Luke Skywalker,
Yeah.
who already have that development around them. Whereas in Andor, they're building it all up from the groundwork, pretty much. We know Cassian, we know a little bit about Mon Mothma, but they're just, I mean, it really is rewarding. And it's only one season, and we're already feeling this. So it has me really excited for the future, because it seems like they have a plan.
Yeah.
Which you would think would be obvious, but it's
Apparently not
taken for granted. Yeah,
biggest company in the planet can't plan 3 movies.
Yeah, but yeah, no,
But
yeah, the characters were definitely another thing I enjoyed. But if you don't have anything else to say, I have
your
another
number
one
2?
for you.
Your number 2?
My number 2 is the setting.
Yes.
And I'm not just talking about Ferrex. I'm not just talking about Aldhani. I'm talking about the gritty underbelly. I'm talking about original trilogy era. I'm talking about the Empire's here, but we're not spending too much time with them. Yes, we see Dedra Miro, and that's her name, right?
Yes, that is her name.
We do see the ISB and some of the Imperials. We see stormtroopers, and they come in, but we're more focused on people like Cassian, on people like Mothma and Luthen, who are working in the shadows. And right from the get-go, we get this episode 1 where Cassian is kind of trying to find information on his sister.
Yeah. That was the first.
He's in that.
A lot of the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, but he's in that kind of underworld. Like we go. I don't know. It was like that seedy bar, but
Alana 1.
we see it, and yeah. Yes. Yeah, because that's where Karn was working. So it's right there. It's like right under the nose of the major Star Wars stuff, because we see the huge narrative between the rebels and the Empire, and before that the Clone Wars and the Republic, and then after that the First Order and the rebel. What do they call the rebellion in that one?
Resistance.
Sequel. Resistance. Yeah.
Not as cool synonym.
Exactly. Yep. And this is just right below this. And a lot of people have always wanted that, because there's so much to Star Wars like lore. There's so much of this, criminal underworld. I know there's a lot of Jabba the Hutt stuff, and I thought Boba might hit on that. I don't want to keep ragging on Boba, but
yeah, we're just like dissing Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, this track, right? But no, it does highlight the differences. Do highlight the goodness of this show. So yeah, I really like that, and it feels so familiar. We saw a lot of the technology. My mind goes to a lot of the Aldhani heist, where they're planning everything. They have all those little gadgets, and then even getting on the rail cart, or I forget what they call it. I don't remember, but seeing the Imperial base, it was really cool. I'm trying to think. I was going to say something else, but I don't remember.
Dang.
But yeah. And then we see kind of newer stuff. The kind of Squid Games episode in the prison.
Yeah,
that was like all new technology, which made sense, because it turns out they were making Death Star parts, and we see that. So even the new kind of innovative, like the kind of show writers are like, well, we're not just we're going to do our own stuff, but then they're like, but it's not our own stuff. We're going to tie it in. We're going to say, all right, it's for the Death Star, which is kind of the big, but we're going to do the shadow behind it. So I really like that. So from the start to the end, I think it was really well in developing that setting, and really having that tone of the seedy kind of underworkings and the behind the scenes kind of the original trilogy.
Yeah. But we were saying that too in the first or second trailer reaction. When we were watching the trailer, we were both like, I love this setting here. There's like all these new places that we haven't seen before, all these new locations, and like, I mean, I love Tatooine as much as the next guy would. If this show was on Tatooine, I would have blown my brains out. I'm like, yeah, I'm done with it. But yeah, like the fact that they were able to introduce so many new things and new aspects of the whole conflict by giving us new locations, new planets, new everything, that made it feel more fresh, and it was a lot more enjoyable because of that. So yeah, definitely.
One of my
Yeah.
favorite. Can I continue?
Yeah.
So I really like this, but one of my
Go.
favorite things is like that kind of wonder you get with Star Wars and kind of, I guess, like fantasy or sci-fi in general. When you have world building like that,
Yeah.
and I know in kind of today where everything's a sequel and everything's like
Remake,
Jason
live
Part
action,
15.
reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard to kind of do new things. All the executives are like, oh, Tatooine, we know that makes money. Do that, do that. So it's really encouraging when we see something like Andor come out and say, no, we're gonna, because I don't think we've been on Aldhani before. I
I don't
certainly
believe so.
haven't seen. And same thing with Ferrex. So it's really really, yeah, I guess encouraging
Exciting.
to see. Exciting, yes, to see them doing that and saying, no, we can flush out the lore. That's one of the like coolest things. Like that kind of wonder you get, like when seeing the eye in the heights, like whoa, like it's awesome. And
That
there's
was
tons of that
so
stuff in
cool.
Star Wars that, yeah, that happens in the comics or in kind of video games or extended kind of lore that really would be so cool to bring forward to kind of the mainstream. So I'm really happy this is doing it. I'm really happy it's using the setting like this to flesh it out and kind of expand, because it's all there. Like,
Yeah.
and it works when you do it well, but sometimes it's not as easy to do it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess we'll do three likes, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
my third and final like for now, I picked this one because I think it's gonna make people angry, and I like that. But my third thing that I liked about the show is the pacing. I really
Mm,
like the pacing in this show, and I know that a lot of people's complaints with the show are about the pacing, and now it's too slow, or it's too boring, or it's whatever. Just because Boba Fett doesn't show up with a lightsaber every 5 minutes does not mean that the show is boring. Okay, everybody, calm down. So I really liked the pacing in this. Now, could you argue that maybe I believe that they probably could have done the show just as effective as it was if it was like 1 to 2 episodes shorter. I think they definitely could have trimmed some stuff. I think they could have done the whole thing in 1 to 2 less episodes. Um, and it would have been just as good, if not better, due to cutting out some things. But ultimately, like it was really I enjoyed the length of each story, because if you remember at the very beginning, like especially in the first 2 episodes, and then after we would come back from a break to react, we were like, this person's name, I don't remember, Brass something, stiff
yeah.
guy. But like if you just blow through all of those characters and get right to the end, there's a chance that you don't even remember some of these people by the time the end of the
Yeah.
season comes along. And part of it is due to the fact that we took a while to react to all the episodes. Like we didn't do it once per week. It took us a little bit, but by the end, it felt like I had been with a lot of these characters for a long time, and that like not in a bad way. Like we had been with them long enough to see this whole plot progress and to see how far along they got. Whereas if I think they did it quicker, it wouldn't have been as effective, because you wouldn't have had as much time with the characters. You wouldn't have had as much dialogue between them. You wouldn't have had as much like time to attach yourself to them, to be attached to them.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the strengths of the show, whereas a lot of people think that's one of the weaknesses. And that's fine if you like a little faster. I guess like I said, they probably could have done it in 1 to 2 less episodes if they really tried, but that's not nearly enough for me to be upset about. Um, I think there's a portion of the fan group that just wants to see Jedi's and not Jedi's. Sorry, oh heresy, my bad. That want to see Jedi and like bounty hunters and blasters and lightsabers and explode, and that's fine. Like if you like that, you like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you can't use that to say that this is a bad show just because it doesn't include the things that you like. So I think the pacing was really good. And
Mm.
especially after you watch and then looking back, because I haven't finished it, but I've rewatched the first 9 episodes, and looking back, like it all it all works. Like it all works. It doesn't feel like it drags
Yeah.
a significant amount
Yeah.
anywhere. Like maybe the beginning arc is maybe the one that people don't like as much, like because maybe that one they think drags. Maybe you didn't need that second episode. I don't know exactly the consensus, but um, I, all around, I think that the pacing is done. It's done well. It's done very well, and I like that. And I wanted to add that as my likes because I know people like think that it's slow, and
People
I
are hating on
disagree.
that. Yeah, I haven't rewatched it yet, but I think that'll be the decider. Maybe like binging through it or something,
Yeah,
but
it helps when you know it's going
especially
somewhere.
now. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
And now that you know, kind of like, oh yeah, I remember Brasso. Where's this? To kind of see that,
yeah, yeah,
because some shows do drag like that on rewatch. You're like, oh, like get to the good parts, but I don't know, because there were a lot of highlights in this one where there's built up parts, but then they all led somewhere, you know.
yeah. hmm
So
A lot
I
of tension
think I
too.
think
A lot
I'm
of build up.
undecided so far with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I think my last thing kind of ties in with everything, and you actually said it.
Oh, great.
um, but kind of. But my favorite thing was that there was not a single lightsaber.
There you
And
go.
that kind of goes in with setting, and that kind of goes in with pacing and all that stuff. But they didn't rely on the big name characters and stuff like that, or big explosions. They did have cool set pieces. In a lot of episodes, they had the first thing at Ferrix where kind of that bell tower things and that exploded and they're
That was
fighting to
awesome.
start
Yeah.
something, which was cool. And then they had, I think next
That
was
was
the
the
heist,
Aldhani.
right?
Yeah, the Aldhani heist.
Yep. Yep. And that was pretty cool. And then I guess the prison break, and
And then the
then
prison break,
finally
and then the
the
finale.
finale. Yep. So yeah, there you go. That's like five major things in what 12 episodes. So there's still a lot, but it didn't feel like. I think the sequels are kind of most guilty of this, where
Yeah.
especially when they did the planet-sized Death Star, where it's like, look how big we can make our explosions, and like
It's
watch it
bigger
in
than the old
3D.
one.
Yeah, which I at a certain point it loses its charm.
Yeah.
So I like taking that step back, and I know I mentioned a lot at setting of like kind of the underworld and kind of the behind the scenes, but I don't know. I guess I just do want to rehash it.
Yeah.
That because even Mando has lightsabers. They have the dark saber, and then
hmm
Luke.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
Yoda's
it's
lightsaber too.
refreshing. Yep, yep. We have that, and then and like and Bad Batch, we had the Order 66, Boba Fett, we had the dark saber again.
Literally 12 episodes of Mandalorian.
And oh yeah, and then yeah, Ahsoka. So yeah, it's nice to take a different route because it's just as compelling. You can have
Yeah.
small scale battles. It doesn't have to be the universe is at stake every time.
Right.
You can
Eh,
still get the same amount of tension and emotion out of just character pieces. Which is good. So yeah, I know we kind of I don't want to harp on it too much, but
No,
that
that's
was
good. Yeah.
my final thing.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked too much about that. I think that's
Mhm.
it's like it's let's think of all the characters in here, what like is repeated or reused? Cassian, Mon
Mothma.
Mothma, Admiral Yularen was there.
Yeah.
Um, like
Um.
that's I c- they mention Palpatine is mentioned by name.
They
Like
had
it's
Star
not they
Killer's armor.
yeah, and I was gonna talk about that in a second too. But like all like even Cat like because I like Rogue One, but Rogue One is not a very good like movie about like characters.
Nice.
It's pretty solid. It's really
Yeah.
it's I like Rogue One, but it's not like a character development movie other than like maybe a little bit of Jin. And so basically in Rogue One, Cassian is just like he's just a guy, like he's just a placeholder like figure person. That hardly even counts as a repeated character because this is like his origin and his all
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
Mon Mothma, uh I
Same
mean
thing.
if yeah, I mean no offense to Mon Mothma, but she's not gonna draw in a crowd like the Mandalorian will or Boba Fett will. So it's not like they're using
Hmm.
her as like watch bait. It's actually makes sense that she would be involved in a lot of this. Her character makes sense, as to why she's there, and it works. It's not. It's not just using old stuff to get people to watch it, which is, it's great. Even the fan service stuff they did do, where is it? It's in the background in a museum.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
Nobody like brings it up or uses it. There's Mandalorian armor, there's Starkiller armor, there's a reference to the Mortis family, there's like a Gungan shield, there's Plo Koon's mask, all kinds of stuff. But they don't talk about it once. It's there in the background. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. That's it. That's it.
Yep.
And that works great. Yeah, did you know we both missed Admiral Yularen. He was in the show.
I missed that.
when they when they when they came in, and I think it was episode 7, right after the attack, when they brought in the poured restrictions. He was the guy
Yeah.
with the mustache and the white hair. He's the one that came in and was like, "This is what we're doing." That was him. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that scene actually. Okay.
Yeah. So that was Yularen, which is cool. We even had the subtitles on too, and it says Yularen in the subtitle. So we still missed it.
We were probably making some dumb joke or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our, I guess, six likes, right? Our 6 big points that we wanted to hit on for the show. I think now we should kind of break down each of the individual side characters and talk about them a little bit more, as well as Cassian. I guess obviously we would start with Cassian because he's like the main character. Cassian's story in this season, I thought was really cool. The most of the season, he feels that the Empire is too big to fight. There's no point because they won't notice, they won't care. Why even bother when you can just worry about yourself, and in his case, Maarva too, and his friends or whatever, and be done with it? Because the Empire doesn't care. They're too big to do anything against. So what's the point? That was one of the things he was when they were getting heated in the Aldhani crew. He said that a couple times. I think he was talking about how like they're so big. Like, why do you even care? Why? Like, I'm here for the money because I'm getting paid to be here. To take a risk like that was the line. Was like, to take a risk like this, yeah, like I wouldn't want to do that because he's not there yet where he's in Rogue One. And then even through prison, even through that, he's still like not fully there yet. It takes him returning to Ferric, seeing Maarva's speech, seeing the riot and his home and all of his friends and everybody getting attacked, and they killed Pack, and all the stuff that went down. It was finally after all that when he decided to just see Luthen. We still don't even know if he's fully committed yet because they just left it off there.
Yeah.
Only after all that did he decide, maybe I should talk to this guy. Maybe there's something here, because now it's personal. It's not like rebellion for individuals until it's like a personal thing. It's like once it became personal to him, that's kind of when he decided to kick it up a notch and actually join, which I really liked about that. We said it earlier, but I like how throughout a lot of the season, Cassian is just kind of like a jerk. He's just kind of like, he's not really committed to anything. He wants money. He wants to go live on a vacation planet and, like sleep in hotel rooms and just eat snacks all day. And he's not like a hero. He's not a rebel. And I really like that because they could have very easily just started him as the same character he is in Rogue One. And it's just like the adventures he happens to go on. That's kind of what Bad Batch was like, except like in the reverse order. Whereas in Clone Wars, they're just, they're these kind of clones. They're different and they're doing stuff. And then the show Bad Batch was just, they're here and they're doing stuff. There wasn't much to that changed. There was some things that changed, but not as significantly as Andor going from how he is in this to when he's a rebel, if you know what I mean.
I really like, or my favorite moments with Cassian were, I think, in the prison, where he kind of spearheaded the resistance, the uprising, the plan to get out of there. And I think he already didn't like the Empire. He already hated it. He just, like you said, he thought it was too big to take down. And then I think after going there, I liked what he said to, I forget the guy's name, the only 2 guys who escaped. He was like, we have to let people know. Yeah. He was like, yeah, we have to make this known. So he gets to see more because he already has seen some atrocities of the Empire, but really firsthand, the kind of slave labor they do. He learns even when you're free, you're not, you just get recycled back into the prison, which is crazy. And that would definitely that
Yeah.
would sway
Well,
me to
even then,
kind
he's
of fight
still not
against him.
even like there yet.
But
You
I was
argue
gonna
that it
say,
takes
yeah.
the funeral for that to happen.
And then he tries to get to Maarva, and he's like, "Oh man!" And then Maarva's big speech kind of convinces him further. So yeah, we see him going on the path towards Rogue One, but like you said, he's not there yet. But there was definitely a lot. I feel like every scene he was in was important to him, and every scene was kind of defining and shaping him in a way, and pushing him further down that path. And I really liked the prison one. Maybe because it also was like cool set pieces.
It was, yeah, that was amazing.
And yeah, but it's really exciting too because I know there's more coming.
Yeah.
With that second season and probably beyond. So yeah, and it kind of left it open ended a little bit, but you can tell he's like, all right, I'm kind of more serious about that. Like to Luthen, he's like, all right, I'm like, let's do this. Let's give me some more missions. Like I'm in it. So
it could also be because he just doesn't
yeah.
want to die because Luthen was trying to kill him. So he's like, I'll join
Yeah,
you.
that's
Don't
what I
kill
mean.
me.
It's kind of open ended. So
I like that.
we're like, and I think too, we're kind of as the viewers biased because like, yeah, fight for the rebels, come on.
Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, and it's interesting to see him as a character, kind of like unraveling who he is. You know, seeing Maarva, who's kind of like his mom, and then Clem, right, was the name of the guy, like kind of his dad figure, that got hanged in the town square, R.I.P. So it's cool. It's kind of cool to see all the things that make him him. And it definitely is going to add new light. I'm not going to watch Rogue One. I know you're in the same mindset till we see more
Not
of
until
Andor.
the show is done.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then
but it's definitely going to make that more compelling. Watching that,
I'm excited to
time
watch
over.
that actually after this.
I know. I really am.
That's gonna be cool. Yeah, I mean, Cassian was great in this. I think after the show's done, he will jump up the ranks of a lot of people's Star Wars characters. Like, not the tippy top, but he'll
Absolutely.
definitely be a lot. He's already higher up on my list of characters that I like, just because of the development that we've seen. Even though he's not even fully there yet, but I think after this, definitely a lot of people like him more, which is awesome. Which is what we want from these shows. People already love Boba Fett.
I
People love
know.
Boba Fett. You know, we get it. He's Boba Fett. He's cool. If anything, doing more of that drops him down lower. So we're gonna try to stop dunking on Boba Fett, but it was too good. It was too good right there. It just made too much sense. You did bring up Maarva last. I think we could talk about her next. She ended up being one of my favorite side characters. I really liked everything that she went through. I liked how she kind of rescued Cassian when he was a kid. Uh, and that whole thing up by itself was already cool. And then, she was just like, she's the mom. But then we had, I think it was episode 7 or 8, that one scene where she realizes she's just been sitting on her butt her whole life, not really doing much. And she decides to fight back. And the way that, like, you can see that, like, her telling Cassian what she feels and what she wants to do, you can see the weight like lift off her shoulders. She feels like euphoric almost, that she's like, I want to fight. This is great. You see Aldhani people are fighting back. We can do this. And I don't know, that scene really solidified her as one of my favorites. I know we were both talking about that scene after. We're like, that was one of my favorite scenes so far. That was really cool. And it also goes back to what we were saying earlier about Cassian, about how he just totally doesn't get it at all. He's just like, "What? I have all this money. Let's just go live somewhere peaceful where we don't have to deal with any of this. What's wrong with you?" And he just doesn't get it. But I love the way that Maarva, like, feels, and I love that she feels that way and reacts like that. And then obviously her speech that she gave at the funeral, in the hologram, that was amazing. The way it was like a rallying call, kind of. You could feel it boiling the whole time. This riot. But after her speech and everybody, like the bomb, like, I don't know. I really enjoyed her little arc that she had as a character. Um, and I was gonna say that I didn't really like how she died off camera, but then as I was thinking about it, I actually do like it, because now we're in the shoes of Cassian. Cassian wasn't there when she died. He didn't know that she was gonna die. He didn't like know it was happening, and neither did we. We're kind of in the same boat that he is. We're like, suddenly she's dead. You're like, whoa, what? She's dead? That's what happened to Cassian. He got that phone call, or he was making that phone call, and the guy was like, sorry, your mom's dead, and he was just like, what? So like we kind of got a bit of that experience where it was like we don't see it happen, just like Cassian kind of doesn't see it happen. I do like that parallel. Um, and I don't know, just her whole character in general, the way that she kind of pushes Cassian to closer to where he ends up being, even posthumously, as she's since he's dead. Even her speech that she made before when she knew she was going to die, that was really cool. I really liked Maarva.
Yeah, I think I agree to that. Her alive speech was my favorite moment. I think it's easy, or I feel like people are going to pick the funeral one, but I think that that speech with Cassian really more
It was more
deeply.
internal and like about her.
Yeah, it more represented her than the speech did. I feel like the speech was for others,
Yeah.
and the
Hmm.
funeral speech was for others, and then her dialogue with Cassian was more encapsulating how she felt, which is really cool. The rebellion only works if you have people like her who are fully supporting it. She's cut from a different cloth.
She
Some
built
people
different.
want to go retire on a nice beach like Cassian, and then some people want to fight the good fight. And she was a fighter, so it was really
Yeah.
cool. And we kind of saw that from, or we kind of got that from her adoption of Cassian. She was, I don't know, did they ever say what she was doing on the planet? Maybe she
I
was
think
just
they were
trying to
just
help
like there
people.
looking for like
Yeah,
they were looked like they were like scavenging maybe or I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe they saw the ship go down and they followed it to see if they could get some parts or something.
hmm
I I
But
I
either
doesn't
way,
I don't think it really matters if
I
you
was
know
gonna say
why they were
either
there.
way,
Yeah.
she out of the goodness of her heart, and Clem, the other guy, I always forget.
Clem.
Yeah, they helped out Cassian, which was unfortunately the only one they could save. Maybe his sister got off. We don't know, but um, yeah, she's awesome, and she is like kind of a rebel hero, that kind of unsung hero even. She the Aldhani was that announcement, but I think even more her kind of funeral speech was really an announcement, especially for Ferrex. And then I think what happened on Ferrex is going to get the word's going to get out, and it's just going to keep boiling over. So I really did like her, and I'm sure there's a lot of, not to diminish her, but I know there's a lot of people like that in the Star Wars universe who are so committed to freedom and
Yeah.
justice and all the good qualities that the rebels uphold. Where they might look like terrorists throwing bombs at the government officials, but no, you could see in those small moments what she's really about. And yeah, it was like literally
It's
chills when she's
deserved.
like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put on my best coat and walk right through the square, like
Yeah.
just resisting in all the little ways. She was awesome.
That was awesome. Yeah. Um I guess we could move on now to Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma was another huge
Uh,
one. I already liked Mon Mothma. Obviously, she's in the original trilogy. She's in the Clone Wars a significant amount. She has a great friendship with Padme, which is really cool. We see her in the Republic Senate and how that all goes down. She's in Rebels as well. She's just in a lot of stuff, and we've seen her around before a lot. But this, and Rogue One too, obviously, but this really also bumped her up the character
mm,
ladder. Just like if you really break it down, her whole story is she needs to find somebody to help her push funds through for the rebellion. And like that's kind of it. And then she does. And it happens. Which you wouldn't think would be interesting, but calling back to the writing, the way it's done is just so like intriguing. The way that you can tell how nervous she is, how all the time she feels like the Empire is breathing down her neck, and it's only getting worse. Her driver is an ISB plant. Like everything around her, it's like closing in, and she has this outstanding charge that they're going to find when they look at the records. She's trying to help the rebellion, and then you see her point of view when Aldhani goes down. She's like, "No, we need to keep this quiet. You can't be." But obviously, the truth is they need it to be big so that the Empire notices. But she doesn't want that because she feels so like crushed in and cornered that by the Empire that she's worried that it's going to get out that she was involved in this, and that would ruin a lot of what they've been planning, um, especially for the wider rebellion because of how much funds that she's pushed through it. So that alone was already really cool, and especially like the party scenes when she was talking to Tay or
Yeah.
Jay, I think it was Tay. Um, but like the way that that she was able to like express to him her needs and all that, and like just the little bits of like the fake politician talk, that like smile and then they put on their politician
Mhm.
faces. I really like the concept of her being like a nag, like a little nuisance, so to throw the Imperials off of her scent, because that makes her look like that's all she's doing. It's like, oh, she's making charities and she's voting against our bills. She's just being obnoxious. When in reality, she's a big part of the rebellion. I really like that because it makes her look less suspicious than if she was perfectly clean, weirdly enough. So that was really cool. And then we had the criminal guy, the criminal banker guy. I forget what his actual title is, but he's not a good dude. Mothma does not like
Yeah.
him.
I
And
forget his name.
I forget his name too, but they said it a bunch when she was like ranting to Tay about him. But her only option is to work with him with what he wants, and then he will come in and help her with the banking problem. And she does it. She literally gives her daughter away to this man's son, for them to have like a traditional arranged marriage or whatever. And like we know from seeing Mothma in her marriage that she's not like she doesn't like that. It's not a good experience. She was married when she was 15. She was a senator when she was 16. It appears from what we've seen, at least her and her husband don't really like each other that much. She does, and it's not even like the guy, the father, is like a great dude or like a senator or whatever, like Perrin, whatever he
Mhm.
is. It's like apparently he's like not a good guy, and she doesn't like how she's has to give away her daughter like this. And I thought that was great. And she did it too because she knows she's sacrificing that for the rebellion. So like whenever she looks at her daughter, if this ends up going through, and like her daughter and the husband later on, whenever she sees that, she's going to be thinking about how she put her daughter in that uncomfortable position, and she's the reason this is happening, regardless of whatever good it does to help the rebellion. Every time she sees that, it's going to be like just weighing down on her. She's going to feel so much guilt, and she already does feel guilt about it, but it was like the only option that she had. So that whole character arc really, that was one of my favorite things in the whole show.
I think she might have been my favorite character of the
Yeah,
show.
I mean that's
um,
fair, dude.
which is
That's
crazy because
valid.
if like a year ago, even you said to me, "Would you like to learn about Mon Mothma's arranged marriage?" I'd be like, "Not really."
Not really.
And turns out that's one of the coolest things. Seeing the culture she was raised in, where she comes from, seeing all the struggle she goes through to help the rebellion. Because before this show, and I guess before, because we see her in a little bit in Clone Wars and some, but like she was in the original trilogy, I think in 5 or 6, and
Okay,
then
yeah.
and I always remembered her from the Family Guy sketch where it's they show her and then it's only to make Lois, who's Leia, jealous. It's like, whoa, the second girl in the whole galaxy.
Yeah.
And Lois goes like, well, she's not pretty or something like that.
Yeah.
um, which is so funny. And not that she's like a throwaway joke character, but she didn't. There wasn't enough time to show all this backstory, obviously, in the original trilogy, and now she's kind of getting it. It makes so much sense. Like a person of power, like you kind of need that to lead a huge rebellion like this. Like George Washington was in real life. He was he fought in I think the Navy for the British. But he was like from a high, powerful family, and he spearheaded the revolution. Just like she's from a
Yeah.
high, powerful family, and she's in the Senate, and she's spearheading the rebellion. But yeah, I don't know. I just think maybe it's my favorite just because I didn't know how much potential she had, maybe
Right.
ignorantly so. But I think they did really well. Some of my favorite scenes were again dinner party scenes. Like
Yeah.
like who
Like
cares about dinner
who would
parties? But
thought
the way they're
who would have
written
thought?
and the dialogue between her and putting on the fake. Oh, and her and Luthen too. Between it, because Luthen does it well too, but just switching on and off and all that acting and their acting of people act like I think it was really, really well done. So I'm excited to see more. Her story's kind of open ended too, and we know she has a path to go to leading the rebellion with Princess Leia, with Bail Organa. Like, she's one of the main people. So seeing so much of her, I think she was probably maybe, I don't know, you think she was like the B story, maybe C story? She had a lot of time though, I think. She was definitely top 3 storylines. Just in representation, not quality. Because in my opinion, really well done. So it was so remarkable.
That's not what I thought was gonna be happening, but I'm glad it went that way, because there's so much more for a character now that, like, when you see her now and other stuff, you think about all the struggles she had to go through and how, like, difficult it was to actually pull this off from her end. It makes it even better. So it's great. Next up, I guess Luthen. We could talk about Luthen a little bit. Luthen had a similar moment for me at the end of episode 10, I think.
Yeah.
That speech he gave, that was, that was great. I was talking to one of my friends who also watched the show, and he was like, a lesser show when the undercover Imperial guy would have asked Luthen why he's doing this, or why should I forget what exactly the question was, but
What do
he
you
was like, why?
sacrifice?
Yeah, what are you sacrificing? He was like, a lesser show would have just gone everything, but that's it. And he was just
Yeah.
like, ooh, wow. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't that seem like exactly what a kind of show would do? It's like, I'm sacrificing everything, or like all of it, or whatever.
Yep.
And they didn't do that. He had a full, like, that speech was great. We hear about how he doesn't want to be this person, and he has to do shady, not so great things to get this to work. All the suffering that he will and has already indirectly caused to people. He doesn't like being that person, but he knows he has to be that person. And that weighing on him. And there was another part where he said, is like, for a future that I'm probably not even going to be alive to see, because he knows he'll probably die somewhere along the lines before any real change is made. Just the knowledge that he knows that, and that weighs on him all the time. Everything that he's sacrificing, like his entire, basically everything he is, like who he is as a person, is just been erased for who he is now, and that for the cause of fighting the Empire. That was really cool. And as we mentioned, the other things like him, being like the museum curator and the way he orchestrates all this stuff. Um, but that in particular really, really made me like his character a lot too.
Yeah, the elevator speech scene, right up there with Maarva's
Top
scene
tier.
with Cassian. Those two, and I think we'll probably get into it, but the I forget his name, prison scene.
Kino.
Yes,
Kino
Kino,
Lloyd.
his speech there. I think those 3 were my favorite scenes of the entire show.
Yeah.
I want to save what I'm going to say about that later. Just kind of a little bit off topic, but just speaking about Luthen, I know he shares a lot of scenes with Mon Mothma, but I feel like he's kind of in the same kind of vein as her. Not that Mon Mothma, yeah, okay. So Mon Mothma, I don't think is as scheming as him, but they're both kind of working and organizing. They're kind of the conspirators, I guess you could say,
Yeah, I
planners.
mean, she's funding it at this point, so
Yeah,
she's kind of like a producer, maybe, like on a
yeah,
movie.
and
Like
he's
he's like the
putting all
director.
like he organized the Aldhani heist, and he has inside agents on in the ISB. That's what the elevator scene was, and then with Saw Gerrera, and the other squad. I forget the name of that place. But anyway, he has multiple plans going at once. He has multiple crews that he's organizing to work together or not work together. And then he's like, oh, I got to let these guys go. They're going to fail,
Anto
but I'm going to let
Krieger,
it happen. Yes,
that guy.
Enter Krieger. Yeah.
Krieger, yeah.
Yeah. So he's kind of the master behind it all. and also kind of from a high, powerful, well, I guess from a wealthy family. He's the curator, or that's his persona. So super cool. I love seeing all these. I guess because it's his character and Mothma's character lend themselves well to the dialogue heavy scenes. Um,
Yeah.
just because they have to be so smart for what they're doing that they're also going to be well spoken, so it makes sense. But yeah, I like, which is crazy. Like my favorite scene wasn't the big explosion with the big eye and all the things. It
Yeah.
was the little scenes where Luthen is conspiring and where he's confronting Saul Guerrera and he's like, "Why wouldn't are you on the inside? What do you
Yeah.
know?" And then
You
he's like,
sacrifice people
"Yeah,
like that,
yep."
yeah.
So Luthen, I think I like Mothma better, but another very, and I think he's
Yeah.
brand new, right? Brand new character to the
Yeah,
show.
he's brand new for
So
sure.
like awesome. Like if they
Hmm.
can pump out characters like these, it's freaking
Yeah. Another
awesome.
one of my favorite scenes of him is when after the Aldhani heist goes down and it's successful, we get that little scene of him like in
Oh
the back
yeah.
room, just like just so happy that that he doesn't have to worry
Yep.
about it, and he just starts laughing in joy that it was
Yep.
successful. That's like a scene that you don't need to add, but like it helps so much with his character. So he's awesome. Like him very much. Um, Next up, we'll go to Karn, Cyril Karn. Um,
Stu?
Probably my least favorite of the three, but not that doesn't mean it was bad. I like how like intense he is. He really wants to do good. He really wants justice. He truly believes that this would be justice. And like finding Cassian and helping the Empire in any way he can because he wants that position back because he was like I was good at my job. You know, I saw the double homicide in 2 days and found the killer and whatever. It, I just like how intense he is about it, how much he wants this justice and how much and Daedra to him is like all she really did was like interrogate him. That's all she did. But to him,
Yeah.
she's like his savior. She gave him the resources to try or like she was a big part of why he was able to continue his research or continue trying to find Cassian or whatever. He's like extra simping for her and he's like super
Yeah.
it
Stu?
I don't know. His character, he was really interesting. I wouldn't say it was like amazing, but it was definitely very solid.
I think he was very front heavy. Like he had a lot of stuff happening in the first arc. And then we get bits and pieces throughout the season, and then at the very end he comes back. I think we're gonna see a lot more of him in the future. Um, which I'm excited for. So I don't think he's as strong, or his storylines weren't as strong as Cassian and Luthen or Mothma
Yeah,
them.
which makes sense. You're
But
not going
I
to have that
think
many
they're
strong stories
yeah,
at
I was gonna
once.
say like I think they're setting him up to become that strong. And I think he is him and the ISB's Deirdre De- Dedra
Daedra,
Mero
yeah,
Daedra
yeah,
something. She's named something. ISB lady. I think their storylines are gonna that's gonna be another one of the major storylines throughout the
hmm
show. And I think seeing how how his storyline is starting, I think now if we see more of it towards going through it, I think it's going to be more compelling. So I
yeah,
mean, I feel like this season they're just kind of setting them up, but
yeah,
I still think there's a lot of potential. So I'm excited, but I think he was not. I don't want to be. I feel like it's almost unfair in saying he's not the same level because maybe he will be, but just on this season, he was kind of on the back burner. I think.
yeah. No, he was definitely he was still I enjoyed watching his scenes and all that. I could just
Yeah, I
picture
didn't.
him in an ISB robe, just standing somewhere. He just has that vibe that maybe somewhere down the
Yeah.
line he joins the Empire somehow. I don't know. Um, but he was definitely a solid part of it. Um, and one thing that I realized that I liked more a lot on rewatch, you guys have to note that we're gonna miss stuff because we're reacting live to the episodes. We're
A
talking, we're
lot of stuff.
commenting on previous things, yeah, on our theories. We're talking to each other, so we're going to miss things. We even have subtitles on so we can read while we're talking, but things are gonna
We
slip
still
through.
miss stuff.
Um, the arc with him and his mom, at first I kind of thought like he was just being like annoyed at his mom and his mom was trying to get him a job or whatever and they were just doing that or whatever. But on the rewatch, I noticed that it's more that the mom is just trying to use him. She wants him to be like a status symbol for her. My son is this. My son
Hmm.
he works here. If you notice, the whole time when she's like berating him in that one episode, and then immediately he goes, I got a promotion today. She's like, oh, good job. Oh my God, you did it. And all the problems they were just having 5 seconds ago, like, you never talked to me, you're shutting me out, what happened to you? Gone. She doesn't care anymore. The fact that he got a promotion is enough for her because in her eyes, he's just like this thing to be paraded around to other people. Oh, Uncle Harlow, he'll help you out, and then you'll like the rest of the like it's kind of like she just wants to parade him for the rest of the look how great my son is, and the fact that I think that helps makes the smack make more sense. He shows up on her doorstep with two bags. Her immediate reaction is, "Oh my God, my son's a failure, and he's back here." Bam, and then
Hmm.
the motherly instinct, whatever. But I didn't see it that way before, and you can also tell based on Cyril's like reactions, like because he knows this, because that's why he's just sitting there eating his cereal. Yeah, and sarcastically just like disregarding everything she says because he knows that she just wants him to be successful. That just so she can like show him off almost instead of just caring about him because he's her son. Like if you notice, like the little moments when he is not in a good position, she'll be like really like angry at him or just talking down to him. And then, like I said, he's like, I got promoted today. She's super happy immediately. Even though him being promoted changes nothing about the fact that he's being cold and like not talking to her, that changes nothing about that. Him getting a
Hmm.
promotion to her is just like, oh, he's almost there. He's almost back. I can finally, he could be like a status thing for me. Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
she just kind of wants to use him. And that to me on my rewatch made it a lot more interesting.
Yeah. I think Karn's mom was my least favorite character.
I
Um,
think I think that's kind of like a correct, like you're not supposed to like her, but
I think that's kind of the point.
you're not really but I think there's like before, like I didn't like her just because like I didn't really care, but now I don't like her because she's just not a good person. So it's different, which makes the show better, if you know what I'm saying. Like before it was just like whatever, but now like there's a little bit more to it because of how I just think that she's just not a very good person, and the way that affects Cyril's storyline, it helps make a lot more sense as to why, like, maybe he also really wants to prove to her that he is somebody, and that's part of the reason he feels so like attached to getting that status and getting Cassian and all that. So that made it better for me, and more of a I don't like her because you're not supposed to like her instead of I don't like her because I don't care. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't like, but I think it's like how in Game of Thrones, like all the polls were like, oh, what character do you not like the most? I hate Joffrey. Joffrey sucks. He's the worst. I wish you'd die. But he's one of the reasons it's so compelling.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think his mom lends to like
to his
more
story.
of the yeah, in his story, it lends more to like he's like, oh man, I just got fired. Now I have to go back to live with my mom, who's really annoying,
Yeah, and she
who
doesn't care
slaps me in the
about
face when
me,
she
just
meets me,
wants me to
who
be,
and I eat cereal, and my
it's
name's
like she
cereal.
doesn't have like
Uh,
the unconditional affection. You know what I mean? Where like it's unconditional like love is just like you love somebody because like they're your son, they're your brother, they're your dad, whatever. Whereas, like, it seems to her, it's more based on it's conditional. It's like, is he doing well? Then I like him. Is he successful? I like him. Is he on the street? Does he have no job? Then he's an idiot and he's stupid, and I have to get Uncle Harler to come fix him up. You know what I mean? Like, that's the vibe I get from her.
yeah, yeah. So I think that drives, or I think that adds a lot to Karn's story too.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the point
But
of her is to make
yeah,
to show why he is the way he is.
yeah.
Yeah, there we go. See.
Yeah, I don't like her.
I don't think you're really supposed to. I think it's kind of like
Yeah, I
you
think
don't.
that's the point.
Yeah. Um, we're gonna try to speed run through the rest of the characters because there's just too many. Vel and
Yeah, there's a
Cinta,
whole.
I really liked. Another thing I noticed, like on the rewatch, is that I noticed this the first time, but didn't really talk about it. That like it seems that Vel like a lot of the time Vel or not Vel, a lot of the time Cinta like is just completely disregarding their relationship. Like Vel will just want to sit and talk with her sometimes and like just be like a normal couple, and then Cinta will be like spying and like planning and plotting because like she hates the Empire so much. That was an interesting dynamic that came up because like Vel just kind of wants her to be like her partner. She wants to talk to her, she wants to, I mean they are together, but right now. And then you have Cinta who kind of puts her off to the side a little bit sometimes in favor of the rebellion. Like I thought that was really interesting, and I didn't really notice it before, but that added a little bit to. I'm mostly thinking of the one scene when they're on Ferrix at the end, and she's talking like, "Oh, I found a room over here that we can that I can stay in," and I don't know exactly how it goes, but Vel is like, "Oh, why not both of us?" Because she wants to be together with her, and Cinder's like, "Oh no, that would draw too much attention, or that would look weird if we're like, so it has to be just me." So then they end up like going off and doing separate things. I like that
Mhm.
because it shows that some people are like really they put off everything for this. If to the point, I think it was like stormtroopers like killed her family or something like that. But people will put aside so much of their life just to fight the Empire, and I thought that was a really cool. That's something they got something out of Cinta's character for that because you could have just left her as kind of she's just there, she's just an extra crew member, and then they could have just killed her during the heist or whatever, but they kept her to help Vel's character and show that maybe she is more of like a sensitive type, but also to show how intense the hatred for the Empire can be because she hates them so much and wants to fight them so much that she like puts all of her personal relationships like on the back burner. Like they'll hold hands and they'll be like, oh, whatever. But her primary focus right now, like she doesn't ever like talk like fancy with her. She never like if you watch, they're supposed to be a couple, but you can't really tell because she's so like focused on the Empire, which is another thing I noticed, which I thought was really cool.
Uh, I'll say it. I had no idea they were even supposed to be a couple.
Yeah, they held hands in like episode like 6, and then in episode like
I
4.
had no idea.
Really? Are you serious?
I'm either a bad
That's
watcher or
hilarious.
they might be really good screenwriters. Then I guess.
Oh, when uh oh what this when he's talking
I
to
guess I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
he was talking to Skeen. Cassian was talking to Skeen, I think, in one of like in episode 4, and he was like talking about each of the members, and he pointed to Vel and like I don't even or he I don't know exactly what he said, but it was along the lines of like you don't think about it, she's taken or whatever. And then you see like Cinta like walk out behind her of their tent, so that was kind of like a hint there. And then
Huh.
when they're by the fire, I think you really you didn't.
Not even a little bit, bro. I thought they were just like teammates,
No,
and
no.
that's why like you're talking about when she's like, she's she's like, she's like, oh, you can't stay here; it'll draw too much attention. I was like, yeah, why is that? Sure, that's not a big deal at all. That makes total sense. But I didn't know they were like in
Yeah,
a
and
committed
then I think
relationship.
in that same episode,
Wow,
by the
bro.
fire, they were talking by the
Woo.
fire. Everyone was talking. I think Cinta was like, remember, she was the one that was patching him up his injuries and like giving him like
Yeah.
clothing him and like fixing him up or whatever. Um, and like they were by the fire, and I think Cinta was next to Cassian, and then like Vel like walks up and like moves them aside and sits between them, and she's like, he can dress himself or something really like sarcastic like that because she felt like he was kind of like they
Huh.
were like getting too close for her. Yeah, and then
Yeah,
in episode
they're just like
and then
part
the
of the
big one
team.
in episode 6, they're like about to do something and they hold hands and she says to Cinta, she's
They
like, "Tell
really
me."
like held hands.
Yeah, she's like, "Tell me you'll be okay," and she was like, "I'll be okay," and then they went out to.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I thought that
Yeah,
was just
no,
like they
because
were
they and
like I
the
thought
rest.
she would have done the same thing to Nemik. I had no
No,
idea. Maybe I'm just non-observant. I think
I.
probably
th- th-
that's really funny.
yeah, and then there was more like couple talk later, like what I was saying on Ferrex in that restaurant where they were like talking. Like Vel was like talking to her like a partner would, and Cinta was kind of just like she was just kind of putting it all aside because she was solely focused
Yeah,
on the Empire. I was like, oh, we can't stay in a room together, and she's like, no, because that would be a bad thing for the
yeah, I
cause.
remember that
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
yes, I guess I mean there you go.
But I
Some
guess they did a good job at showing them distant. Um,
yeah, but they also
'Cause
like
then I don't.
explicitly showed a handful of times that they were together.
Wow, I gotta rewatch
You'll
this
see,
ASAP,
you'll see
dude.
when you rewatch the episodes. You'll see
I
the moments I
trust you,
was
dude.
talking
I
about.
maybe I was just reacting. I
I mean,
guess.
yeah, it's fair because that, like I was saying earlier, we're reacting, so things are going to slip through. You know.
That's so funny, bro.
Yeah, you'll see.
I'm not
You'll
even
see.
like kidding or anything. I
Yeah, I
have
know. I
no
know.
idea.
I believe you. But
And that's why, like, I know the exact storyline. They're on Ferrex, and she's in the telescope,
yeah,
and Val comes in, and she's like, "Can I lay low here?" It's like, "Oh, it'll be good. We finally have some peace and quiet." She's like, "No, it's going to draw too much attention."
yeah,
So
exactly.
in my mind, I'm like, "Yeah, like okay, so just go somewhere else. What's the big deal?"
Right.
So I didn't know they were in a
Yeah,
committed
but like,
relationship.
yeah, and then like, but like to Vel, it's like that's it's her girlfriend, and she's just
That
like,
adds a whole nother level.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
There you go. See, it's even better than you thought. Now the show is even better than you thought it was when we
Jeez.
started recording. Who would have thought it?
Crazy. Keeps getting
Um,
better, I
yeah,
guess.
but yeah, there's that. Who else we have? We had Nemik. Shout out to Nemik, bro. He
Rip.
like I don't know, like the little speeches that he would make when he was talking about the Empire and their oppression, and he even sees the oppression in the types of technology that people use. So he uses like an old school like direction device. The way he was
Mhm.
just like spitting off, like mouthing off, like empires do this and like regimes do whatever. Like that was really cool because I really felt that he. I like how much kind of like Cinta. I like how much he like fully believes in the cause and how much he wants to fight them. Um, and even his manifesto, when we hear Cassian playing the manifesto audio and him listening to
Yeah.
it as the whole Ferrex stuff is going down, that was really cool. Just the way that he talks about it makes you want to fight. You know, it makes you want to be like, yeah, he's right. We gotta do something about this. And then there's the theory that Nemik's manifesto is the book that Castian has on his costume in Rogue One. I don't know if you've seen that anywhere.
Wow. I
Yeah,
have not seen
in
that.
Cass, you know, Cassian's
Makes
got
a
like a
lot of
blue jacket
sense.
and he has he's got like a little book strapped to his shoulder up here, like a little
Mhm.
leather thing. And people are saying that that's Nemik's manifesto when they're
I wouldn't doubt it.
that would be really cool though. But yeah, I don't know if you wanted to talk about him or any other side characters. We
Yeah,
just
I
kind of
think
rattle them
that
off.
yeah, for the Aldhani crew, I think Val was my favorite.
Mhm.
And then I think Cinta and Skeen and Nemik were kind of the next tier. I like Nemik. You kind of got the vibe like he was almost too kind-hearted. You're like, all right, this dude's dying.
Yeah, like he's not making it.
um, yeah, but I guess that's kind of a trope. But like he serves a purpose. He shows just like Maarva that people are like into it. Like people think about it a
Hmm.
lot, and he was smart enough to actually articulate that in his manifesto. Um, and it's cool. I think one of my favorite parts too is seeing Cassian reading it or listening to it again later on. Because they showed him getting the book, but I think it's even more important showing him listening to it, like actively buying into what he was saying. So and yeah, and Rip he gets crushed.
Yeah,
Um,
I think though,
and
like
then
in a
yeah,
lesser show, he would have survived that. And it wouldn't have hit his heart because he would, oh, he's
hmm
fine, you know, he's gonna go do his own thing or he's coming with us. I think you kind of need to kill him there because to show like this is
it's good
real.
to have stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, like he died. Like I think in a different show, there's a chance that he like survives, and it doesn't mean as much. So,
hmm
well, it sucks. I mean, I think that killing him was the right call.
And then Skeen's his name,
Skeen.
right? The
Yes, that's his
turncoat.
name.
He was cool. He turned on a dime. He flip flopped his story like
Ugh,
that. But it makes a lot of sense. That was kind of the whole thing about that Aldhani group is they all have different backstories. They kind of feeling each other out. And I haven't rewatched yet, but just from seeing the storyline, you can kind of tell now from the beginning of that arc where he was so skeptical of Cassian and he was like so prying into his story. It's because his Skeen's story himself was a fake. So he's
yeah.
like,
Hmm.
is there another fake here? Like he's trying to find out other people. And he does find out Cassian. Cassian does sound like, oh, I'm in it for the money. Um, that's my Cassian
That's
impression. I
great.
can't do it. And then and then he turns coat and he's like, we have, I think it was like million something. I don't remember how much, but he's like, we can split it. And Cassian, the cold-hearted killer, just bam knocks him out.
Boom.
Which makes a lot of sense. Cassian, we know, is not afraid to I guess cut loose ties, or I guess just protect himself more so.
Yeah, he was also probably
Um,
mad that after all they went through, that he lied to everybody and
yeah,
that he would betray Vel and the rest of them. He was probably just like, we just did all that. I was getting yelled at so much for not being trustworthy, and here you are doing this. No, and he
yeah.
blasts him.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's another thing too, like you're saying with the stakes. Like I think it's okay that he died off so soon. Because he added a nice compelling part of that story. To where at first you're like, oh, he's skeptical, he doesn't want to let him in on the team, and then you find out, oh, this guy wasn't even for the team at all. He was for
Yeah,
himself. So but that was really cool, and then that pushes Cassian into going to that beach resort and then going to jail. But yeah, he was cool too. And then I forget the other guys' names, the Imperial
Terriman
ones who
and
died.
Gorn.
Yeah,
Terriman was the
rip.
former stormtrooper, and Gorn was the undercover guy, and they both died.
Mhm.
R.I.P.
Um, yeah, but their whole arc was cool.
Hmm.
The I think it was episode 6. I want to say.
Yes.
That was super cool. I really liked that. That was definitely top 3 episodes, maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
top 3 or 4.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they're cool. I will definitely see more of Vel and Cinta. I think the rest didn't survive, right? Did one of the
Yeah, it was
guys
just
maybe?
Vel, Cinta, and that was it, and
Yeah.
Cassian.
So, but yeah, I think that was really well done.
We we can't not talk about Kino. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gonna be quick, unfortunately, but like his speech, like I, I don't know, just the how well his character's written to from at first not wanting to be involved because he's only got 200 days and he's out of there. Everybody be good so that we don't get punished more. To him realizing that you don't get out, and that flip of the switch to no, screw that, we're getting out of here. That I thought was a great
Mhm.
little arc for him. Um, the performance, I mean, come on, like seriously, how can you not?
Come on.
How can you not be a fan? Great casting, call by them, great job all around. He was great.
Yeah, he was another one. I think as because he is a really like he's a true side character. Like Mon Mothma is kind of a side character, but really not. She's kind of main too. Like he's more a side character.
Yeah,
But he's definitely my favorite out of all of them. Yeah, just it was what 2-3 episodes that occurred
I think
in,
3. He was
and
only in 3 episodes.
so compelling. Yep, and then that final speech was easily top 3 scenes with the other 2 speeches.
I got chills in that scene. Everybody was
Yeah,
escaping and all that.
literally.
Oof.
And then the final moments. I can't swim. That's my
I can't
impression.
swim. Oh man,
Yeah,
so
tragic,
sad.
tragic, ironic. Um,
I hope they
and
don't
yeah,
follow up. Honestly, just leave it.
no,
I don't
leave
want
it
to
there.
see
Leave it there.
Adventures of Kino. No, just leave it. It's great the way
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, and leave it open ended. Maybe he does escape. Maybe he doesn't.
Yeah, but don't tell us. I just, you
I
know,
well, I kind of care, but I don't want to see it. Um,
exactly.
but I will say, I guess I'll say it now because we got to him. My 3 favorite scenes were the speeches, were the monologues. And I think by far, like they were all very well written, and I think his was my favorite
Yeah.
because he like has callbacks and stuff. He's looking right at Cassian as he gives it, and his arc was so quick and his turn, and they're in such a moment of distress, and you're rising up from the ash. It was awesome,
Yeah.
and it's I think that is like an epitome of what this show is. It's more of those small moments. It's more of those character driven moments. Whereas my favorite scene from Mando is when Luke Skywalker comes in and he
Yeah, it's
bosses up,
different. It's different
and
things.
it's so different, and it's awesome because you can have both those moments.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's so nice to have a show that's celebrating that, I guess is the right word, but just out there doing it.
Yeah.
Awesome. But yeah,
Yeah.
he was from that scene alone top
Shout out
character.
Andy Serkis, great actor, great
That's
guy.
why they brought him in, dude.
Yeah.
That's why they brought him
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. I'm sure there's so much more we can talk about, but this video is also already very long. I'm thinking about making it episode 2 of our podcast, actually. So if you're watching this and
Ooh.
confused as to why we didn't intro it as the podcast, that's because I just decided to do it now. So we might be making this into a podcast episode because I'm pretty sure it's like an hour and a half or so. But there was a lot to say. There was a lot to talk
uh,
about.
can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go for it.
And I'll make it quick because yeah, it is a long episode, but very good season. ISBs.
Oh
Our girl
yes, we didn't even see.
Jedra,
There's so much stuff we
our
didn't get
girl
to.
or our guy Jay Lings, and then the boss man with the flow. I don't know their names, but awesome. I think
Yeah.
their scenes were written just as well as the dinner party scenes. Especially my favorite one with them is when Dedra Marrow. I'm gonna get it right one time. I'll get it right.
You did it.
When she gets control of Jay Lings' stuff.
But she gets
Where like
the system, I think.
yeah. And how she kind of convinces I don't know the leader's name either.
Yeah.
Forgive us. but yeah, it was like well written, and it's like so it feels fast paced, but like it's just people talking. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. So, and
Yeah.
I think that speaks to the quality of it. But yeah, I wanted to shout them out because that's another excellent.
You're totally
part
right. I completely forgot about that too. Like
Yeah.
we talked about it a little bit, but we never see the Empire's side at these events. Normally it's the rebels do something, they win, they celebrate, boom. We don't see like the immediate scramble of the and this isn't even the whole Empire, just the ISB here. The scramble of all them running into the room. This is like we saw it in the Senate too. Everybody getting the news and running out to like go deal with whatever. That was really cool, and I hope we see more of that, and especially more from the Imperial side. That was another great storyline.
Yep, and I think it speaks for itself. So I think we can.
Yeah, it's good. We don't have to tell you why it's good. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna do it. I'm sure, like I said, there's plenty of things that we missed that we could have talked about.
Yeah.
I'm seriously considering making this a podcast episode, so it's not like a normal video that's an hour and a half, because it's not a video, it's just talking. So we might be doing that. But yeah, let us know what you thought about anything we said or just the show in general in the comments. If you watched this long, thank you very much. I don't expect a lot of people to get to this point in the video because it's super long. So if you're here, thank you, genuinely. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. I can't believe you didn't know they were a couple, dude.
Not even a slightest clue, bro.